What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex. In this video, I want to talk about Control. I want to talk about if Control is too short. Now, this game just released yesterday, and people have, gotten their hands on it. There's a lot of impressions out on the internet, and I've kind of been going around looking at those impressions, trying to get a general grasp of what this game not only is about, I kind of already knew what it was about, but how good or how bad this game was. And, I really kind of want to make this video, centered on its length, but also talk a little bit about how people think of gaming length in general. I actually talked about this in a preview for Man of Medan, which comes out Friday, which I do want to talk about a little bit in this video because I do think it's somewhat important. Now, Control, for what I've seen, to some people, they seem to think that this is Remedy's best product, which means better than Alan Wake, better than Quantum Break. I don't think it's better than Alan Wake. From everything I've seen about this game, from the story to just the gameplay, it doesn't, to me, seem to match. Although, that's just my opinion. I haven't actually played it. That's just me looking at it. So maybe it's different for those that have played it. That's the opinion of some. I'd say generally this game has gotten a lot of 8s across the board. Not the most amazing game in the world, not the worst game in the world. Now, that honestly is kind of where I would have thought Control would have fit in the first place. I think that Control would have been that above average game, but not like, this masterpiece. Even Alan Wake, which again, to me, and to I think a lot of others would look at as like their best product, it is not a perfect game, and I wouldn't honestly even put it to the top quality of the best games that have ever come out, storytelling or otherwise, even games in different genres, but even the kind of game that Alan Wake or Control is, I wouldn't say Alan Wake is even the top of the line there. So, I think people had to keep their expectations, at a minimum. Now, one of the bigger things I saw, though, is a lot of people had said, even people that were praising it. You get that a lot when people praise games. They say, this is their best work. The story, the writing is the best. It's too short. And you see that in a positive way, or said that in a positive way, but you honestly do have to look at it and talk about that for a little bit. Is this game too short? Well, the How Long to Beat website, which I love this website, by the way, and, it's not a be-all kind of thing, especially day one, especially that the game just came out. It's basically, if you guys don't know what it is, it's a website that compiles people that play this game, and it tracks you. I mean, you can upload how long it took you to beat the game, and there's multiple different ways of beating it. There's for, completionists. There's a lot of different things in it. I think it's a fantastic website. I use it a lot when I'm thinking about jumping into a game to see how long that game is. And that puts Control at just around 11 hours, a little over 11 hours if you're a completionist, if you're beating everything. Now, again, it's day one when I'm recording this. It's day one. Not a lot of people have uploaded how long it's taken them to play it, okay? So technically, you could have, if you have a couple extra 100 people come, some people are going to play this game longer, some people are going to play this game shorter, but you do have to kind of see that 11 hours, if that is the mean, or that's the average of it, then that's the case. Some people may take longer to beat it down the line. Maybe it takes them 14, but some people would maybe beat it in 7. And the question is an 11-hour game for $60? Now, you can buy this game actually on sale. It's already on sale, like most games are now, for $50 on Amazon. So you look at it and you say, well, do you want to pay $50 for an 11-hour game? And I think, to me, the answer is that's fine. That's fine. Control, is it a game that I would necessarily drop $50 to play it for 11 hours? Not necessarily. I kind of like the way it looks. I appreciate them making this game. I think I'll pass, though, right? I'll watch somebody else play it. I think that's completely cool. You don't have to buy every single game that releases in the world, otherwise we all go broke. But I think to a lot of people, especially in this day and age of longer games better, right? And constantly adding on service, live service games, like a Marvel's Avengers will be, and games like Destiny and basically every Ubisoft game and all those kind of games. We are kind of built in this world, or we've been programmed to live in this gaming world where you buy a game and you get services for that game, where there's constantly things that are being added over and over for many months, if not years, that makes it so that you could realistically just play that game and you wouldn't play any other game. Now, personally, for me, that's not even the kind of game that I like to play. I have so many games. I have 15 games in my backlog that I haven't even, gotten through, and some of those games are 100-hour plus games. There's no way I'll ever be able to beat them all, because there are a lot of them, at least half of them, are super long games like Metal Gear 5 and Final Fantasy and Witcher and Persona. I mean, those are 4 enormously massive games. So, I appreciate long games. I love long games. I really do. When it comes to the kind of game Control is, though, and I've always talked about it, I talked about it with Man of Medan, I think I even talked about it with Control as well when I previewed it, is in my mind, I go back in the PS3, Xbox 360 era with, like, say, early games, even like an Uncharted. And back then, Uncharted 1 came out, and it was a 10-hour game. I mean, I think you could beat that game in 7 or 8 hours. Let's say 8-hour game. 8-hour game, full price, no multiplayer. Different difficulties, you can collect the treasures, but that's it. That's all you could do. Now, in Control, there's things like that too. There's collectibles. You can go back and you can replay it. There's an epilogue. So there's stuff to this game. But for the most part, you play it one time. I think most people would peace out after that, right? You don't necessarily need to go back. And we didn't really have a problem paying that price for those games back then, okay? And obviously things like that get brought up when we have the game like The Order 1886, which was a 4-hour experience, which, you could debate if it was good or bad. I'd say it was bad. 4-hour experience, looked really nice, but totally empty, right? And I mean, I did. I don't know about you guys. I paid $60 day one for that game. So I spent $60 for 4 hours of my time. And I guess it ultimately comes down to how much is like your playing length time worth to you. Not how much is it worth in general. I don't think that's honestly fair, and that's where these games get bad reputations. I don't think it's fair to say that. I think it's just in your own personal mind, and that's really what this video is. Is Control too short? Really, the title should be, is Control too short for you? Because are you going to pay $50 to play 11 hours? Well, that's like $5 an hour. Is that worth it to you? Some people would say yes, some people would say no. If you bought Persona 5 right now, or let's say when it first came out, to make it fair, $60, it's like a 100-hour plus game. I mean, they said that. It's over 100 hours to beat. So, the amount of money per time is drastically lower, okay? It's less than $1. So, how much is that worth to you? I would have no problem doing what I did back in the PS3 era again now. Uncharted 4, they've added. I always like to go back to those games. I know people always say, "Why do you bring up those kind of games?" It's just the games that I like the most. I tend to bring up as examples, but it still holds true. Uncharted 4, they've done two things to that series since the first game. They made it longer. Uncharted 4 is a longer game than Uncharted 1, probably double the length. It takes around 15 to 18 hours to beat it, just like The Last of Us. And they added multiplayer. Now, they added multiplayer on Uncharted 2, but you get my point. At the same time, I'd still spent full price. In fact, I bought the collector's edition for Uncharted 4. So I think, again, ultimately, it just depends on the kind of game and really the kind of person you are. I don't need to play 100-hour games consistently. I don't need to just play Destiny or Call of Duty or whatever, name your game. And again, I think it's just because we're in this kind of gaming atmosphere where games come out and it's like they expect you kind of, and even in their marketing, they kind of talk about it like, well, we know you're going to play this game for like 100 hours. We want this to be your primary game for the next year. And every game wants that, by the way. Okay, every game that comes out will want that. And so they'll all do it. And they'll have DLCs, and they'll have live services where they bring on, a new expansion pack. Look at games like For Honor. For Honor's been out for 2 years, and it's basically on like its third iteration. They could have made a For Honor 2 by now, but instead they've basically done a For Honor 1.5 and 1.75. So it's really just the age we live in. I personally don't think Control, and here's the thing, I'm just talking about for the hours. Now, when you're playing the game, is a fundamental problem with the game that it does feel too short, that maybe something was rushed about it, that the ending was rushed, that, it should have just been longer, or that it's enjoyable, but it is literally just too short that they want it to be. I mean, that's a valid criticism that I don't know if it's actually true, okay? I haven't played it, so maybe if somebody's playing and they're saying, this game feels too short, you could look at that as a valid actual criticism of the game. This is literally just talking about the hours, okay? How many hours does it take to beat the game? And if you're looking at this game, I think a lot of people do this, by the way. I actually do think there's more people than you may think that do this. When they're going to buy a game, when they're looking at a game, you kind of have to think, well, how long do I expect to play this game? How long do I want to play this game? And how much am I expecting the game to give back to me? When I'm buying Borderlands 3 next week or in 2 weeks, I'm buying Gears 5 in 2 weeks, I'm expecting them to give me a certain amount of time back, right? To be honest with you, I'm expecting Borderlands to give me more than Gears, and that's just my own, like, how much I even plan on playing it. But I know fully that both games are going to give me enough hours of new content and new things to do based on how long I'm willing to put in it. I know that. When it comes to Control, though, if you're buying and you're saying, well, I want a 15 to 18 hours, story-driven game, and you're going in and you want that from it, well, it can't deliver that. And so I think that's a valid thing, that you look at the game and you say, well, will this give me that value that I'm hoping or expecting that this game will? And if it doesn't, then I'm not going to get it. To me, 11 hours, it does harken back to the early days, the PS3, even early PS4 days. It reminds me of that. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I understand why to some it would be bad. I will say, in even this day and age, single-player stories are tending to be a little bit longer. You look at those Naughty Dog games, you look at, say, God of War even, and they do try and stretch it. It's not anymore 8 to 10 hours. It's more like 13 to 15 or 15 plus. We have gotten examples of like Detroit Become Human, let's say, from Quantic Dream last year. That's like an 8-hour game. But with all the branching storylines, you can really go back and you can really replay it and actually get a completely different game, basically, and you can do that a couple times. So really that game is more of a 15 to 20-hour game. So it's an interesting landscape we live in. I thought this would be a fun topic just to kind of talk about gaming length and connect it to Control. But guys, let me know in the comments below, what do you think about gaming length in general, and do you think Control is too short? Do you think an 11-hour story-driven game, a single-player game with nothing really else to do you think that, isn't worth it nowadays? Let me know. Make sure you guys subscribe to our YouTube channel, Podcast Now. Hit the bell icon so you guys know when these videos go up. And thank you, as always, for watching, and I hope to see you all on the next video.